My Little Dashy by Rob Cakeran 53. I live my life one day at a time. A good portion of these days are uneventful, always falling into the same routine. I wake up, I walk to work, walk home, and then bum around until I go to bed. Sometimes I hang around with a few of my friends, while other times I just play video games or watch My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Every so often, something new and interesting happens. I meet an old friend, I find $1 on the ground, or I get chased by a stray dog. Living in a dying city isn't very fun or interesting. The city was once full of life and color, but most most of the houses are sagging, the businesses sit empty and abandoned, and several open fields lay barren of the once great factories that helped drive the economy. I've never seen the city during those times in person, but I've seen pictures. My mother and father lived happily, and they could only wish for me the same for growing up. Sadly, I cannot say I have achieved that wish of theirs. I've fallen into the same daily routine: wake, work, sleep, repeat. I do not have the same moments of bliss, but the daily struggles I go through outweigh those small moments of joy I have. My Little Pony has helped, but it's still just another thing to give my hopes up. Every time I see the show, or one of the ponies on a fan site, I recoil a bit at the bright colors, the joyful faces of the ponies, and the peaceful scenery of the world. It is so hard to look at that beautiful world, having it so close to my grasp. I reach out to touch its warm colors and bright smiling faces of the ponies, only to be stopped by my computer screen. I snap back to reality. It gets to the point where I simply shut down my computer and walk away. I do that a lot, especially after my parents' death. I go for a walk. When I feel sad, I walk. When I feel tired, I walk. When I feel like walking, I walk. Walking has become my second nature in a sense. I spend at least half my day outside along with the crumbling sidewalks and decaying suburbs. I've seen people come and go. I've seen these buildings torn down, burned up, or have so much graffiti on its walls that its original color is unrecognizable. I very rarely pass by other people on my strolls. Most people don't like to look at their once beautiful city, their homes or former businesses. I don't blame them. In fact, I envy them. They saw this place with their own two eyes, seeing the buildings still standing tall and proud, the lawns freshly cut, the paved roads, and the sidewalks still intact. The only thing I've seen that even comes close to my mother's paintings, each of them beautiful, colorful sceneries of this concrete world. She started painting once everything started crumbling beneath her feet, making the sad scenery before her look beautiful. Her masterpiece is of an open field that yielded a parking garage. Over it she drew an amazing rainbow. It's my favorite picture. I guess that's part of why I like Rainbow Dash the most out of all the ponies. Her colors, the amazing sonic rainbow, all of them remind me of the picture. There have been times that I wish I had my own Rainbow Dash, or more realistically, a plushie of her, to curl up in bed with. I've made an old Simba toy into a temporary replacement, until I'm able to save enough money for one. It helps in a way, like holding it close will heal my wounds, my pain, and my sorrow. My feet, after countless of hours of walking in my old shoes, pulsate under the sheath. All the while, I'll hold that stuffed animal harder than any mother protecting her child. It's the only thing I can look at and feel true joy, even if it isn't physically the Rainbow Dash I want. It will have to do. Today, as usual, I walked to work. It was the same bit, just a different day. Watching the same people enter the store, grab their merchandise and pay, then walk out with bags in tow. My shift ended several hours of this. I clocked out and started walking home. I decided to use a different route this time, for a change in pace, a little something different from the normal path I walk. This path was torn. This part of town was hit the worst. Only a few houses still stand, and none of them was occupied. It is a truly sad sight to see. Then again, it's the only sight I ever see. The only sight I ever see. Or so I thought. I stopped by something unusual. A stray cardboard box in the middle of the sidewalk. Now, living in this kind of area, I see trash all the time. Boxes, McDonald's cups, plastic bags, and litter the street and empty fields. But I rarely see a cardboard box that isn't crushed in one way or another. I noticed this particular box because it happened to be on my way. During my younger years, I tried to do what I could for the community. I'd pick up trash whenever I saw it, or attempt to help my neighbors. It was a losing battle. Nowadays, I'd given up any hope of cleaning the city, much less my own neighborhood. Now I just pass the trash by, letting it blow away in the breeze, or sit there to decompose. I left I let what's left of the people do their own things, since most of them don't care about anyone other than themselves. So why should I be any different? I walked past the box, barely giving it a glance. Nothing about it caught my attention right away. I continued on to my home, now not far away. Upon arrival, I sat down and played some games, attempted to push the box out of my mind. I had little luck, as the box somehow managed to push its way back in. Time crept on by, and I found myself soon wanting to go for another walk. I left the house and started down my usual route, when I stopped. What was it about that box that made it stick in my mind? I turned around, starting down the path I had taken to get home, the path that I only walked once in a blue moon. Curiosity got the best of me, and I wanted some closure. Within minutes I found it, still sitting there, sad and alone amongst the broken concrete and overgrown grass. It didn't move. It didn't stand out as if it were special. It was just an ordinary brown cardboard box. I didn't want to say I came out all the way for nothing, so I walked closer to it. As I drew closer, however, I began to notice something inside. It was brightly colored, multiple colors in fact, and it was quite small, maybe the size of a month-year-old Labrador puppy. I stopped beside the box and looked down at the colorful blob inside. This is where I currently stand, looking into the small box. Something. No, I know exactly what this is, but my brain isn't allowing me to fully realize it just yet. At first I wanted to say it was a simple toy, left to die along with the other things in this block, but then I saw it breathing. In fact, it appears to be sleeping. My hands are sweating, my breath is erratic. I am blinking my eyes to try and refresh my vision. Each time, the image stays the same. Inside is a sleeping, filly Rainbow Dash. I kneel down, trying to get a closer look into the box. I can't believe what I'm seeing. There is not a physical, mental, or extraterrestrial way how this could be here. How she could be here, in my gloomy, dark, and horrid world. I examine the box further, and on the side it says in simple pen, "Give to good home." The first thought that runs through my mind, besides the initial, "Filly Rainbow Dash is in a box," or "Who would give her up a Filly Rainbow Dash?" My mind is now a mess of questions. How did she get here? Why is she here? Why is she a filly? Her flank is even barren of her cutie mark, meaning that indeed she is a filly. As I stand to stretch my tired legs, I accidentally bump into the box with my foot, and the inevitable occurs. She wakes up. She looks around, rubbing her face with her foreleg, trying to wake herself up. At first all she sees are the brown walls of the box, but then she looks up at me. Those large black eyes, along with the rose-colored rim around them, drive my heart, as the meme goes, explode twice. The sheer cuteness of it all drives me to kneel back down, and I can't hold back a smile. I haven't smiled like this in years, since the last time me and my parents went out to the only remaining park in the area. Her eyes continued to stare at me, and I stared back. I don't know what to say or what to do, but I must start somewhere. "Hi there," I speak. She doesn't respond. What are you doing out here?" She looks around, then back to me. The more I study her, the more I realize she is really, really young. Years younger than her filly appearance in episode 23. She might not be able to talk yet. That is, if she can even talk at all in my world. The fact that she is even existing right now has me really in confusion. I return my attention back to her, and notice a small shiver over her body. The fall season is here, and it can get pretty cold, especially around mid-September. I'm not sure how to exactly tackle this situation. Do I take her home? Do I call someone? Who would I even call? I'm a closet brony, so none of my friends know about my love for the show. I can't take her to a shelter. That's just a stupid thought in the first place. Not only would it be a horrible sight, she might be taken off to some lab and experimented upon, or something just as horrible. I have no other choice. She shakes once more as the cool air reaches her coat. Her wings ruffle as she lays back down and huddles her legs closer to keep her body warm. That's the final straw. I can't take it anymore. I take off my own jacket and reach down to pick her up. I get the initial response I expected: fear. She begins to squirm around, uncertain what I'm doing to her. She can't fly yet, but still she flutters her wings as in praying for a miracle to happen, that she does magically take flight. I set her into my jacket, wrap her up so that my head is sticking out, and hold her in my arm. She continues to squirm, but then my body heat begins to finally seep through the thin jacket and she settles down. It's alright. Let's get you somewhere warmer, huh? I smile at her. She looks up at me with so much confusion in her eyes as she tries to process what is happening. Don't worry. I'm not going to hurt you. It's getting late, and you'll freeze out here. I think she understands me, for after I say those words, her eyes return to their normal size, and she snuggles herself more comfortable inside my jacket. She squirms a little, trying to get into a more comfortable position. I can feel her hooves and wings poking me as she shifts. Then, to top it off, she rests her chin onto my arm and lets out a deep sigh, closing her eyes to drift off to sleep. My heart explodes for a third time. The entire walk back, I keep an eye out for other people who might pass me by. I don't want anyone else to see her. I have no way of knowing how they would react. As usual, though, I don't see a single person. It's midnight by the time I get home, so fortunately for us, I had turned on my porch light. Otherwise, I might have even passed it. Being one of the few occupied homes on the block meant a lot of darkness. The city had even stopped running power to the streetlights, so that made it even all the more difficult. I glanced at the filly, who continued to sleep in the jacket as I carried her. She was no longer shivering and felt quite warm. I walk up to my porch, careful not to make much noise as I get my keys out, unlock the two dead bolts, the master lock, and finally the doorknob, and open my door. It's dark inside, due to me leaving while it was still light out. With a flick of a switch, the single bulb in the hallway comes to life, shedding some light into the living room. Most of the furnishings are my parents', and again, so is this house. I became the owner after their passing, and I have done what I can to keep it that way. Still with the filly Rainbow Dash in my arm, I walk into the living room. As I pass my family portrait, I greet it with a "Hello, Mom. Hello, Dad." I know they aren't there, but knowing that they love me and that I love them helps me stay sane and to keep me going in my miserable life. As I enter the living room, I can feel a stirring in my arm. He had almost woken up, most likely when I turned on the light, and is now getting antsy. With no idea what to do or how to tackle this situation, I set her down on the couch. Immediately she jumps out of the jacket and looks around, already investigating her surroundings. I continue to watch her as she explores the couch, then continues off to walk to the coffee table. What are you doing here in my world? I didn't mean to ask that out loud, but it just some sort of happens every now and then. Only seeing my friends once in a great while, I find myself talking to, well, myself a lot. I don't own a pet because that just means more money to dish out, and I'm already struggling at it as it is. From my question, the only response is another blank look from her face. That tells me she has no clue either. Then again, what else would you expect from a filly that can't even talk yet? Are you lost? The moment my words left my mouth, her ears fell flat and she looked to the ground. Oh. The realization struck me that she has no clue what's going on, where she is, who I am, or anything else. She is beyond the word lost. She is misplaced. Well, until something happens, I guess you can stay with me. I see how she lifts up her head, ears starting to erect once again, and she looks at me with worry. My words don't sound that encouraging, so I throw on a smile as I speak. Don't worry. I'm sure whatever brought you here will fix itself with time. We just gotta wait. Is that alright? I'm not sure why I asked that, but it seemed to do the trick. Her ears perk right up and she smiles. The next few hours are spent giving her the grand tour of my house. Nothing amazing to see, and I avoid taking her into my bedroom out of fear that the large amount of dirty clothes will swallow her up. Afterward, I give her something to eat. I break up some small carrots, and amazingly, I discover that she has some teeth. Since she's still a filly, I wasn't sure if she could eat solid food such as carrots yet. Then again, she is from a cartoon, so I don't know what is correct for her anyway. Satisfied with the food, she finds a comfy spot in my parents' recliner and sits. I don't mind. It's not like I sit in it. I was never allowed to when he was alive, so why should that change even after his passing? It's his chair. But I'm not going to be mean to a filly for not knowing that, so I let her sit where she is the most comfortable. I give her a small blanket to wrap herself in, due to my house's current temperature. It's not as cold as it is outside, but my furnace still has problems since before my parents' passing. There was a trick to fixing it, but that died along with my father. I must have fallen asleep at some point. I honestly expected myself to be awake due to such an interesting event, but after the long hours of work and staying up to take care of Dash, my body had other plans. I'm not sure how long I was out before I woke, but it doesn't matter. As I closed my eyes, I felt something against my side. I look, and sleeping beside me is a small cyan filly. Her rainbow mane and tail, her head resting on the side of my elbow. I know the meme gets old, but I must say it. My heart explodes again. Laying there, sleeping and curled up beside me, had me smiling ear to ear. Her gentle breaths were barely heard. The hairs on her mane tickle my arm, but I hold back any movement to itch. The warmth of her body against my stomach warms my already weak heart. Though a few months' time isn't a long time, it's long enough to have wanted a moment like this. I own a little pony, a Rainbow Dash plushie to sleep with and hold tight, and now I have a real Rainbow Dash, a filly, sleeping at my side, content as though she's known me since birth. Right now, there's nothing else that matters to me. My despair, my sore feet, and my painful heart all go unnoticed, as nothing else can come remotely close to the feeling I have right now. This joy I am experiencing at this moment as I lay awake on my couch. She is here. She is real. And right now, she is my little pony. She is my little Dashy. It has only been a few months since I brought the young Rainbow Dash into my home. I've done what little research I could on the matter, but I've come to no conclusions. I have no idea why she's here, and quite frankly, I don't even care anymore. These few months with her have been the most amazing time of my life, as she has opened my heart to joy and love, and amongst other things. Right now, she sits next to me on the couch as I watch television. She seemed to enjoy the morning cartoons on the local stations, and I myself have come to enjoy them. She acts much like a young child. Then again, why wouldn't she? Another amazing feat is that she's been learning to talk. I'm not much of a teacher, or for that matter a parent, but I am doing my best to help her learn to speak and read. I don't know how, or even begin to attempt to teaching her how to write, but from the show they did it with their mouths, but I will let that go for now. When she gets a little older, if I even have her that long, I will do whatever I can to teach her. It used to be that the year would go by slowly. I would look forward to the new year in hopes of getting a fresh start. Now though, I felt as if this year went by a little too quickly for me. I've decided, since I have no knowledge of her actual birthday, to make the day I found her birthday. September the 17th, oddly enough. That's the very same date the second season of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic aired last year. I quit watching the show after Dashy came into my life. There was no reason for me to continue, and honestly, I don't have much time to myself anymore. It would be hard for me to hide watching the show, and even harder to explain the situation if she were to ever see it, especially at her current age. She knew her name was Rainbow Dash, but I've come to call her by Pinky's pet name of Dashy, and she has no problem with that. She can fully communicate with me now, as well as read English, and she's even started to learn how to write it, and you've guessed it, with her mouth. I've tried to invent some devices for her hoof so that she could write, but it seems writing with her mouth is more natural than moving her hoof around. One thing that troubles me now with her. Every day she sits at the window, looking outside. I'm not worried about her being seen by passerbys. I'm on a dead-end street, so that's the least of my worries. Still, though, she doesn't say anything to me yet. I can see the hunger for fresh air in her eyes. I can't keep her inside her entire life. I keep talking as though she's going to be here forever. That isn't true. One day, sometime, she must return home, whether it be a simple poof and that she's gone, or maybe through some magical spell and Twilight shows up and takes her home to fix everything. In my heart, I hope that never happens, but in my head, I know it will. It's just a matter of when. I do hope to get her outside soon. I've been checking out some of the abandoned lots and a former park on my walks to and from my work, seeing where the best location would be for her to take her. Oddly enough, it seems the park I had played at and growing up with was the best option. That it shall be then. I shall take her to the park. How I will get her there? She is still relatively small, so she can still be hidden inside a jacket or something. Tomorrow's supposed to be a nice day anyway. She did it. After 2 years in my care, and having absolutely no knowledge of flight myself, I helped her learn to fly. She's gotten quite big in a couple of years, and it was hard to hide her when we walked to the park. I got so desperate to keep her hidden, I bought a dog costume for her to put on, so that she could walk there unnoticed. She was not happy, so I got some books from the library and read upon how birds teach to fly. I would have looked on the internet, but I fear she will become curious of it herself. There are lots of horrors on the internet, and she's not ready for it. In hindsight, it's bad enough she's experiencing television, but she has come to enjoy SpongeBob and NASCAR far too much for me to take that away from her. Back to the flying. I've been taking her to the park for weeks in hopes I could help her learn how to fly. There's a large tree there, with branches sticking out over the sandbox. A perfect spot for her to practice. If she falls and I can't catch her, at least she'll have something remotely soft to land on. She fell a lot, and I knew she would fall a lot. There were many scrapes, cuts, and bruises towards her goal, but finally, after many weeks of work, she flew. It was only a short distance, about 50 feet, but she did it. She's a little scrap by, but she's beaming with pride. Maybe now she could fly overhead, so that the few people on the ground didn't notice her. I'll have to see if she can manipulate clouds like she did on the show. It would make it much easier for her to take her places, and she can hide on a cloud as we go to the park. Another thing that's been brought to my attention. She's asked me about having her own room. I got to thinking, and realized the house does have a spare bedroom, though my parents had filled it with my old school stuff from my younger years, as well as several of my old toys. She might enjoy them, though she is getting older. I'm not sure how entertaining they would be for her. If she has her own room, I can get her own things so that she can feel somewhat normal. She's pretty smart for a filly, and knows about the difference between her species. But she still doesn't know about knows nothing about her origin. She's not ready yet. The only thing I can do is keep her happy. I only wish I had some way to buy her the things she wants. If you told me 4 years ago I'd be taking care of a cartoon, rainbow-colored pony, I'd call you insane. And I probably am in all reality, but I don't care. I'm happy. She's happy. Today's the day of the celebration, for today, my little Dashy got her cutie mark. I honestly don't know how to tackle that fact, since she didn't even know what it was until I explained it to her. Now she's even more ecstatic than before. It was a normal park outing, but this time she decided she wanted to see how high she could get. I had limited to how high up she could fly, but I honestly can't do anything about what she does up there. I can't fly, so the most I could do was to tell her was to be careful. Somewhere she got it in her head to see just how fast she could fly, probably due to her being a NASCAR fan and, well, a general racing fan. For some time she was trying to make up tricks and stunts of her own, giving them names. I'd just sit on a bench and have her fixed up and cheer her on. No one was around ever anymore. In fact, on that block, I think the last person left over a year ago. There are rumors the entire area is going to be bought up by some company, however, and this turned into a large manufacturing area. I don't know how to feel about that, but it's not important right now. Right now, I'm so overcome with joy that my Dashy now knows her place. Granted, this isn't her world, and she's still the same Rainbow Dash from the show. Regardless of how I raised her, she has the same spunk and attitudes from the show. And now, she has her cutie mark. Anyway, she climbed up to quite a height in an attempt to gain speed from the fall. Well, all the right things factored for her. She positioned herself, her mental focus, and possibly me on the ground watching and cheering her on. But she did it. She broke the sound barrier and created a sonic rainbow overhead. Now, I didn't even imagine it was impossible to accomplish such a feat in my world. I know you could break the sound barrier, but actually doing the rainbow part too? My mind is blown. So, the initial explosion brought upon many broken windows and sent off car alarms in the next county. I quickly rounded her up, and we rushed home before anyone could arrive at the park. I was lucky none of my windows were broken. The rest of the day was spent celebrating. It just happened today was her 4th birthday. I have no way of knowing how old she really was, but when I got her, so we just started over. I would have bought her a cake, but due to the boom, all the businesses were closed and needed new windows. So we made our own cake. Apparently, the fanfiction writers got it right. She can't bake at all. Granted, I am not the best myself, but it was still a mess. But we had fun. She enjoyed herself, and she is happy. And therefore, I am happy. Though that was her highlight of the day, mine was just moments ago. She has now become accustomed to sleeping in her own room versus me on the couch. I actually stopped sleeping in my room and kept her company in the living room up until recently. Now I can sleep on my bed once more, but I keep my door unlocked so if she needs me she can get to me. I just tucked her into bed and told her good night when she said it. Good night, Daddy. I love you. I haven't been on the internet in 3 years now. I don't know how my Little Pony thing is doing online, or what memes are still alive or not. But damn it all, I'm gonna say it because it's true. My heart exploded twice. For the first time, not only did she call me Daddy, which she has done on occasion, but she even said, I love you. For a moment, I didn't know what to say or what to do. I've never been in this sort of situation before, but I remembered what my mother and father used to do, so I leaned down and kissed her on the forehead and told her the same thing. Good night, my little Dashy. I love you too. She smiled at me, then closed her eyes to sleep. I walked out, turned off her light, making sure her SpongeBob nightlight was on, of course, and I closed the door. Then I sat down on the couch. I haven't moved for an hour now. I'm just so lost in thought. The few times she had called me Daddy, I didn't think of anything of it. I could picture why she would call me that. Being with her so much made me accept it as part of me taking care of her. But tonight, when she said it in those 3 words, the realization finally sunk into my heart. I am her daddy. She considers me her daddy, and quite frankly, I consider her my daughter. Even though we are of totally different species, I still loved her with all of my heart, and it has taken her to speak those 3 words for me to realize that. I think I've finally done it. I've broken my hard shell that had formed me when my parents died. I've let my sweet little filly into my life. I gave her a home to live in, food to eat, and now a daddy to love. She has given me hope, love, compassion, and now something I had never thought I'd utter, a daughter. I still speculate when the time is going to arrive that she goes back to Equestria, and each day gets harder for me to imagine when that actually happens. I just hope she never forgets me, because I'll never forget her. I believe Dashy is now at her full size, rounding in at about 3 feet tall. She is fully grown. Though she is still only 10 years old according to my math, I believe she is actually more along the lines of 14 or 15, possibly in actual years. So we celebrated 5 missed birthdays on an officially moving day. That's right, moving day. We moved out from my parents' house, thanks to me for finally saving up enough money, plus getting lucky at a casino. We bought a nice house 100 miles away from the city. It's got a lot of open land. There isn't any other house within 5 miles, and it's just me and her. Now she can fly all she wants, whenever she wants. She is truly happy, though she does miss the old park. It's gone now, along with everything else left in the area. A large business bought up all the land, flattened it, and made a large factory there. It was an amazing boom for the economy, and people started to build homes again. I'm glad, but it just wasn't for us. That amount of people would just hinder her going outside, and I'm not going to force her to stay inside all day, unless it's raining out. I even got a new job, one that pays much more than my old one. Dashy Dashy even talked about getting a job, but then she remembered what I told her. The look on her face was heartbreaking. We were going to enjoy the cake we made, which I must add we've improved upon the skill, but when she brought it up, I jokingly said she can't do to her being a pony, and I laughed. She remained silent. My God, I'm horrible. I just laughed at her because my daughter is different. I apologized for hours, and even though she says she understands, I know it still hurts. Luckily, I have a way to fix this. Due to the sheer size of the property, it involves a lot of cutting of the grass. Tomorrow, I will modify a lawnmower for her to use, so that she can have a job. I'll even pay her, so that she can buy her own stuff if she wants to. Though I'd have to get it for her. Still, she can actually say she's worth something. According to the show, she was a weather pony. And I don't want her to mess around with Mother Nature unless it's a dire emergency, so there isn't really any job for her to be had. I still can't believe I've had her for 10 years now. My God, time goes by so fast. I wish it would slow down so that I could have more time with her. I don't know when, but I have the sudden feeling our time is running out. All of this has been too good to be true. Today has been the worst day of my life, even more worse than my parents died, due to events I could not prepare for. Dashy found out about the truth before I could tell her. She knows what she is, a made-up cartoon character from a television show. She is mad, no, upset beyond all thought. She had locked herself inside her room, but I know my daughter. She didn't stay in there for long. She opened her window and flew off, probably into a tree to sulk in her sorrow. I'm a monster. I should have told her sooner. I just wasn't sure when the right time would be. Now we are both suffering for my carelessness. I thought getting cable would be such a good thing. Give her some more shows to watch, but what I didn't realize is that we got a hub station. I wasn't even aware that it was still up. And then to find my surprise, the show My Little Pony Show is still even airing. It has stopped at 8th season, but it's still repeated. I remember when I walked in from work with some groceries, set them into the kitchen and walked into the living room. That's when I saw it. Yay, she did it! Fluttershy had screamed, jumping with joy as Applejack, Twilight, and Pinkie Pie all sat on the clouds with dumbfounded looks on their faces. My heart sank. I knew this episode. I remembered this episode. Even after seeing it not seeing it for 12 years, I still remember that damned episode. In that episode, Rainbow Dash performs the first sonic rainbow, much like My Little Dashy had years ago. At the time, I was still holding my keys, and I dropped them. They clanged on the wood floor. She didn't know I was home before. She knew now. How long? Dashy asked me, no emotion in her voice. How long have you known about this? Dashy turned to look at me. She had been crying, and her mane was even in worse shape than normal. How long have you known about this? I couldn't help it. A tear ran down my cheek as she yelled at me. This was the first time in all these years she had actually raised her voice to me, and I deserved every bit of it. I sat down, turned off the television, and told her everything. I told her about the show, about finding her, and I answered any questions she had for me. There were a lot. Most of them stemmed from the show, to which I simply told her what I truly believed, and that though she is Rainbow Dash from the show, that she herself is a different pony from the cartoon. I explained her to it that, but her bullheadedness took over as she continued to lash out at me. I took it all. I deserved it all. I've been keeping that horrible secret from her for far too long. She is now a fully grown mare capable of taking care of herself if she were in Equestria. Here I still treat her like she was my little filly. It's been wrong of me, but I just couldn't help it. I didn't want to see it ever happen, but I knew it would. I should have done what was right, but I didn't. It was only a matter of time before she found out, and she knew she was different. After our argument, she flew upstairs into her bedroom and slammed her door shut. I checked on her an hour later, and no response told me she had flown off. I can only hope that she comes back, or at least, if she doesn't, she'll stay away from any other people. If anything, I hope some portal opens up and she goes back to her world, and has never ever have to think about me again. All I can say at her at this point is that I'm sorry. I am so sorry. It's been 3 days since Dashy left. The night of her departure, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I went for a walk. I wasn't sure where I was going or how long I'd walked, but that's what I did. I walked. Now, 3 days later, I'm finding myself here walking out once again. I've been out for roughly 3 days, and though it's only been 5 in the afternoon, it has grown dark. A storm is brewing, and soon I will be getting hit by the brunt of it. I turn around to begin walking home, though I don't rush. My energy these past days have been non-existent, as I have barely eaten anything more than some toast. I felt so lost as I walked through these woods that surround my home. No, our home. This is as much as hers as it is mine, and nothing will change that. The rain has begun, but I do not quicken my pace. I just walk, much as I had done so long ago. The distant memories of all my pain and sorrow before Dashy began to seep back into my mind. I haven't had these thoughts in years. The pats of rain on these tree leaves help me keep distracted. It's a peaceful sound, one you would never hear in the city. The rain is picking up as my shirt is now soaking wet. I'm sure I will be sick in the morning, but I don't care. I've been sick for 3 days now. A mental illness that has been tearing me apart. My daughter is somewhere out here, hurting, in need of some comfort and warmth in this rain. I wish I could be there for her, even though she may not want to see me. She may not even want to see me ever again, from how she acted. I don't blame her. It must have been such a horrible thing to find out that you're passed like that. I can't even imagine what it would be like. I know Dashy is a strong mare and she can pull through, but I know how she holds a grudge at times. I'm not sure that even if she comes back, she would even ever forgive me, or more importantly, if I could ever forgive myself. It's now pouring out here. The tree canopies are barely holding back the torrential rains as I'm hammered by all the rain droplets. I stop to look around. I find my bearings to return home. I'm not lost. Most of this area is easy to traverse to once you get used to it. It's just I'm also looking for Dashy as a walk. It's the only reason I'm walking in the forest in the first place. I press on, keeping a steady pace through this rain. Suddenly I spy a large, thick tree. Its stature stands out amongst the rest, and from looking at the barely wet grass underneath it, I can tell that its many branches are holding back even this hard rain. I need to take a break, so I walk under the tree and sit down. The grass is barely wet, with only a few small droplets making their way down. This is the kind of tree I imagine Dashy would hide under in this rain. I wish it to be true, but I saw no sign of her as I approached. I closed my eyes, and I lean against the tree hulk as I think about my life. Our life, together as father and daughter. We've grown so much as a family, and we've been fortunate enough to have only very few fights. None of them were as heartbreaking as the one 3 days ago. I feel a tear running down my cheek as I imagine Dashy's face again. The anger in her eyes, mixed with the confusion, just tears me apart. I want so badly to make things right, or to go back in time and stop it from happening, but I can't do either of those. What's been done has been done. I'm so sorry. I speak out loud, not caring if anyone is listening. I'm alone in these woods, besides the wildlife. In this rain, they are hiding as well, and only ones that aren't far from and the ones that aren't far are from and the ones that aren't far from being such as I. I'm just so sorry, Dashy. I continue to cry as I keep my eyes closed, leaning against the tree. The rain continues to pour around me. An occasional drop hits my head, but I don't care. Crack. I open my eyes from the sudden sound. I look to my left. I am shocked to see what I see before me, looking at me with teary eyes herself. Dashy. My little Dashy is covered in burrs and tree sap along her mane and tail, is standing in a couple of feet from me. She's wet, both with rain and tears. I hadn't heard of her approach, then again, being a Pegasus, she was very quiet and light on her hooves. She doesn't speak, and instead walks over to me, not caring what noises she makes on her hooves. I don't move. I just sit on the ground and watch with my own wet eyes. She looks so horrible, yet so beautiful at the same time. Her coat would need a good cleaning, but that was the least of my worries. Without a word, she sits next to me, not making eye contact as she looks off into the woods. I can only look at her, wishing to hug her tightly and never letting go again, but I hold back, knowing that it would be all too sudden. Finally, she's the first to speak. I've heard you. Her voice then got quiet as she whispers. And I'm sorry too. I simply smiled through my tears. Her stubborn attitude was still showing, as though she had difficulties apologizing. Dashy, you have nothing to be sorry about. It's my fault. It's as simple as that. It seems my point doesn't get across as she finally looks at me with a sorrowful face. Dad, do you still love me? Now is the time to act. I reach over and grab her, holding her in a tight hug. Of course, Dashy. I've always loved you. I will always love you, no matter what. Not even a small fight such as ours could ever change that. She returns a hug as we sit and cry together. We continue to apologize, me for the truth, and she for raising her voice and storming out. After some time, the rain subsides while we remain under the tree. Dad? Mm-hmm. Can we go home now? I need a shower. Bad. I let out a chuckle as she too laughs as I stand. We make our trip back home. She is smiling again, and I am too. I've been giving it some thought, and I think shall give her birthday present a little early. A ticket to the Indy 500. Yes, I'm taking her to the Indy 500. She can simply sit on a cloud and watch while I'm in the stands. I didn't even have to get her a ticket, but she needs some sort of a reminder of the visit. I'm sure she will have a blast. And though I didn't expect even expect this to make her everything right, I can only hope it will cheer her up some. With some time, I'm sure she will relax and settle down about her being a cartoon. She is a smart mare, and I know she knows she's real. Not that made up pony from the cartoon. I can only help push her into believing that, and hope that she does the same to me. There's a point in every parent's life where they just have to let their child go, whether it be for the better or for the worse. It must happen at some point. Now I sit here in my living room by myself, soaking over the photograph of my distant memories of me and Dashy. On her 20th birthday, I had planned a special outing to go see a flight show. As we prepared to leave, there was a knocking on the door. Never in the years we have lived here had anyone knocked on the door. Hell, we haven't even made arrangements if someone did show up. I simply told her to go up to her room while I took care of it. Once I heard the door shut, I calmly and collectively asked who it was knocking, expecting some stranger to possibly lost on his or her travels. A female voice spoke in such an elegant yet attention-grabbing tone. I felt myself listening to her with the utmost attention. She asked if she may come in, a question I'd normally refuse within a heartbeat, and yet something about her voice was reminiscing. I couldn't help but walk over and open the door. When I first saw the figure standing out on my porch, I wasn't sure if I was dreaming or hallucinating. Standing there was the radiant and majestic Princess Celestia. I was at a loss for words, fighting both emotions of her brony excitement, which I had only felt when I first found Dashy, and the emotions of sorrow, for I knew what this meant. She stood there another second looking at me. We matched each other at eye level, her body being the same size of a nearly full-grown horse. I stepped back and allowed her to enter. What caught me off guard next was the 5 other ponies that followed suit. First Twilight Sparkle, and then the rest of the gang. Applejack, Rarity, Fluttershy, and lastly Pinkie Pie bounced in. "Ooh, so this is what an alien house looks like on the inside? Oh my, you have a kitchen! I'm starving! Are you starving? I can make us some—" She was stopped by Applejack's hoof. "Easy there, Sugar Cube. We're just here for Rainbow Dash, so we ain't got no time for any eating." Rainbow Dash's stomach growled. No matter how hungry we are, I still wasn't sure how to completely react to all of this. But not wanting to be rude, I offered some leftovers. We have some leftovers from dinner last night. You're more than welcome to have some." Pinkie took that as an okay, and ran into the kitchen with much vigor. It seemed I didn't even need to tell her where anything was. She instantly knew where everything was placed. Factory to either being dumb luck or simply being Pinkie Pie. I chose the latter. "I'll keep an eye on her," Applejack said, walking in to join the hyper pony. As she passed, she tipped her hat to me. I was finding it odd that the ponies were no more hesitant around a creature such as me. Then again, the same could be said for myself, but having Dashy for 15 years, I had grown used to having such a thing around me. Now, I have 5 other ponies and a full-sized goddess horse looking at me with the same amount of curiosity that I held for them. There was a moment of silence as I watched the 2 mares enter my kitchen and began to rummage through my fridge. "I am quite surprised," Celestia began. "I'd expected a little more resistance upon us entering." "Why? I know who you all are." Celestia nodded. "Ah, so you do know then? That you are the fictional characters from a children's TV show? Then yes. Otherwise, why you are here, I have no clue." That last part I lied, hoping to keep my mind at ease. I knew the reason, but I wanted to ignore it. "Oh, I think you do know." My heart fell into the pits of my stomach. I did know, and she was straight to the point about it. During all these years, I had anticipated this moment, but as time dragged on, that thought slowly dispelled until it was nothing more than just a minor nip on my mind. That's when it always happens, you know, when everything is finally perfect, and when you have no more worries. Excuse me, sir," Twilight began, but from what we could figure out, Rainbow Dash should be here. Is she?" I looked at the purple mare. I wanted to tell her no, but I knew it was fruitless. "She's upstairs in her room."
"In her room?"
Rarity asked it, surprised. "Yes, Dashy is in her room. I wasn't sure who was knocking, and I didn't want her to be spotted."
"Dashy? My, you're that friendly with her already,"
Rarity continued. I wanted to punch that pony so hard right then. How she responded insulted me. Friendly? That's not even the beginning of it. And I should be asking you ponies as to what the hell you did. Celestia raised a brow, taken aback by my change of tone. "You see, my student." "I know who she is. Get to the chase." I was very short with her, as furious as I was. I wanted to know why they'd sent Dashy as a filly to some other world. Twilight bit her lip as her teacher continued. "Yes, of course. She was working on a spell to help the weather team with some storm development. Well, they made it slightly too large of a storm, and when Twilight used her magic and tried to dispel it, it shot a lightning bolt to meet her magic. Rainbow Dash was unfortunate enough to be within reach of the blast, and it engulfed her and sailed to, well, here. So we are here to retrieve her. Simple enough, I'd imagine. Before I could answer, Dashy called from her room. Dad, is everything alright? That second, my heart stopped beating as I looked from pony to pony. Each one's face was in pure shock and confusion. They recognized the voice of their Rainbow Dash, but she said, Dad. Excuse me, Sugar Cube, Applejack started, returning from the kitchen. Did I just hear Rainbow Dash call you Dad? Before I could answer, Celestia stared up at me again. Do you care to explain? I was lost. So many things were running through my mind at once. There was only one thing I could do, and I had to do it, but I knew I wouldn't like it. Go into the living room and make yourself comfortable. I'll be right down with her. I didn't allow a response, and I turned around and walked upstairs slowly. Dad? Yes, Dashy, I'm coming up. I looked back down to the group of ponies as they watched me ascend. We need to talk. So that's what I did. I told her who was down there, and that we were here to take her back. She had seen the cartoon every so often sometime, and we found the wacky adventures entertaining. She had given up any thought about that the Rainbow Dash in the show was actually her, and only viewed it as another cartoon. As I talked to her and explained to her that those very ponies she didn't believe in were downstairs, she brushed me off with some laughs. She didn't believe me, and thought I was playing some joke on her, so I took her down to the living room. Dashy! Pinky shouted, jumping onto her cyan friend. Dashy was quick to shove the pink pony off. Hey, get off me! She was taken aback by the sudden amount of ponies filling up the living room. They all looked to her with weird expressions as to why she shoved her closest friend away. Pinky's cotton candy mane went straight down as he looked in confusion. You don't recognize me, do you? No, or any of you, Dashy continued. It hurt me in so many ways. I knew these were her friends, but so many things had happened differently that she didn't know the truth fully, and neither did they, so I had to explain to them. I started. Dashy, please take a seat so I can talk to them. She did just that. In her recliner, the entire room shook. The entire time she had looked at all the ponies who occupied the couches and the center of the rug in front of the fireplace. It was time. At first, I had to start with a question. How long ago was she sent over here? The question caught them off guard, but Twilight cleared her throat as she spoke. About 15 days ago? Why? I was speechless. 15 days ago? Shit. She's been with me for 15 years. That meant a day in their world meant a year here. Well, I continued, it's been a lot more time than that over here. How long? Twilight asked. 15 years. All the ponies besides Celestia had their mouth agape. That don't explain why she don't know us, Applejack said. Well, the thing is, when I found her, she was a filly. Come again? From my math, I think she's no older than 4 or 5 years old when I found her. Now Celestia looked surprised. You mean to tell us that you've been taking care of Rainbow Dash for 15 years, since she was a small filly? She asked. I simply nodded, looked over to Rainbow Dash, who wore an expressionless look on her face. Well, she is, I started, but I couldn't hold back my tears any longer. I know it's not true, but oh God, I wish it was, but I understand now. The dad part now makes sense. Celestia caught me off, holding a stern look on her face. She was thinking, trying to piece together in her mind what possibly could have happened. I chalked it up to being magic, being unstable, possibly reverting her in age. For a few moments it was quiet, beside the breathing of 7 ponies and myself. Finally, it was Dashy who broke the silence. So? What's supposed to happen now? I looked to the princess, trying to read her face. No matter how good I had gotten at reading Dashy's face, the Princess Celestia had the best poker face I had ever seen. She had no clue. I had no clue what she was thinking or feeling at this very moment. Well, it's quite simple. Twilight? Celestia looked to her pupil, who instantly perked up at hearing her name. Do you still remember that memory spell from the Discord incident? Twilight simply nodded as she stood up from the couch and hopped onto the floor. I knew what was going on, what Celestia had in mind. She wanted Twilight to either erase her memories and start from anew, or possibly, I hoped she just simply wanted to give Dashy her memories from their friendships and their time in Ponyville. I wasn't sure what to do. I felt it was right. I knew it was right, and it needed to be done. I had been telling myself that for 15 years that I waited for this very moment. But there was something I needed to say before it happened. If these ponies were going to take my Dashy away, I had some words to speak before it could happen. No, wait! Please! I started. Twilight stopped and looked to the Sun Goddess. Just give me a moment with her, please. All I ask, since this is going to be the last time we see each other. I had given up on holding back my tears. At this very moment I was openly crying, so that the ponies could tell I was hurting, and Dashy didn't look to be faring all too well either. So, figuring it wasn't good to prolong the inevitable, I walked over to the chair Dashy sat in, and knelt down to meet her at eye level as I spoke. Dashy, my little Dashy, I love you with all my heart. You've done wonders to open me up from the man I once was. I paused a moment to settle down. You've brought me so much joy in my life that I can't possibly ever thank you for. At this point, Dashy had begun to cry too. That only made it worse for me. These 15 years we've had together, talking and playing, flying, all those have been so special to me. I want you to know that I will forever love you, no matter if we aren't biologically related or of different worlds. I don't even care what you may think of me, or even if you remember me or not, but right now, you being my little Dashy, I want you. I poked her on the chest to physically show I was talking to her. I want you to know that fact. If there's ever a problem that happens and you need me, don't hesitate to way to find me, okay? I tried to laugh, passing the last part of it off as a joke. It worked, though only slightly, as we both continued to cry. I also heard some sniffling from behind me. I could only picture Pinkie Pie crying as much as she had at the end of the second season in season 1, after Celestia and Luna had been reunited. Do I have to go, Daddy? It had been a few years since she actually called me Daddy. Most of the time it just would simply just be Dad or Pops. It felt good, knowing she still cared for me enough to call me Daddy, much like the first time she had said it to me so many years ago. I simply nodded my head as I stood back up. Before I could fully grasp my balance, she jumped onto me and hugged me tight. I could feel her tears on the back of my neck, and I returned the embrace. It's your actual home, Dashy. You don't belong here. You need to go back to where you belong. I belong here with you. It hurt so much to say, but I had to keep her convinced that this was the right thing to do. No, you don't. You are limited here, only able to fly around the house. You have no friends, no ponies to relate to. I was only taking care of you until this very time would come, but I never thought it would be this painful. It remained quiet for a few more minutes as we held each other tight. She didn't fight back or wanted to resist what was happening, which told me she knew well what had to be done. I love you, Daddy. And I love you too, my little Dashy. We separated as she lowered herself to the ground. At this point, all the other ponies had tears flowing, even the goddess herself. She had seemed quite smug about knowing what was happening, but the time difference and such. But it was evident that the age difference was a shock. She most likely had expected to find a 35-year-old Rainbow Dash, but instead she found my 20-year-old Dashy. Violet stepped closer to Rainbow Dash, sniffing once before her own glowed. I knew it was coming. It hurt so much, but I knew it was right. It was what had to happen, for her friends, and in a twisted way for me. Now I could know she was actually going home, and would be around her friends, where she could fly where and whenever she wanted to, without limitations. She could enjoy her friends' company once more. Wait! I looked away from the floor to Dashy as she backed away from Twilight. Before I go, I want to get something. Before any pony or myself could protest, she flew up to her room. She was quick and returned with a shoebox in her front hooves. I wasn't sure if she would be allowed to take anything back with her, and I half expected the princess to protest. But she remained quiet, allowing Dashy to quickly jot down something on a piece of paper and set it on the coffee table. She looked back to me, still crying, but with a smile on her face. I know she had realized how this was going to end, and she knew that I knew that as well. The box, from my guessing, was probably her most cherished items that she kept for if she had to leave. Though it hurt me thinking about it, I hoped she had a picture of us. Then again, I also hoped she had not, for she would be forced to remember me in a world far away, and that hurt just as much as everything else. I'm so sorry, Rainbow Dash, Twilight started. I honestly wish there was some other way to do this. I wish I didn't have to do this, but... Can't... Dashy started. Can't he come with me? She stuttered. The stuttering in her voice told me that she was simply speaking her mind, not actually asking the question. Violet shook her head, unable to keep eye contact with her friend as she cried before her. Rainbow Dash, Princess Celestia started. He cannot join in our world, much like how you cannot stay in his. This was all never meant to be, and the world around us was not made to house you, and yet... Celestia looked to me, smiling. They began to look around the living room, all the photos of us together, all her knickknacks and belongings strewn around the room. And yet, something beautiful has happened here. Something I cannot explain in full. When I realized why you ended up here, I expected the worst. I thought you'd be ruined, tainted and tarnished by this world's cruelty. But now I see that it's quite the opposite. That here, this man has raised you. Shows me that you are in good hooves, or hands, as it were. Dashy sniffed once, beginning to calm down as Celestia's words sank in. Celestia then turned to looking at me, still smiling. I cannot speak for you, but from what I've seen in front of me, the amount of love you both share and have shared together tells me that you've raised her as if she were your own. Even with the obvious differences, you still raised her unbiased as to her species and her origins. You raised her as your own daughter, which only makes its entire ordeal all the more worse. I absorbed her words, as well as the other ponies in the room. So I must say to you, dear sir, please do not hold any grudge towards my student for this. It was never her, nor any pony else's intention to cause this much hurt to either of you. If you must blame some pony, I would ask you to blame me. I am the one who helped them bring here, to take Rainbow Dash back to her home, away from here. I just couldn't look at any of them. My heavy breathing breaking down with sobs. My mind was just going on her own, thinking back to all the times, all the things Dashy and I did together. I took a deep breath as I spoke. Just, how could I blame any pony for sending Dashy around to here? I sniffled, then cleared my throat as I continued. I nearly choked up as I searched for the words to express myself. These have been the best 15 years of my life, so if anything, I feel quite the opposite. I wish to thank you all, Twilight, And the rest of you. Thank you for what you did, though not intentional. Thank you for all that came out of this. And finally, thank you for my years, my love with Dashy. I tried to smile at Twilight between their sobs, but she looked at the edge of tears herself, and she could only look away before she cried herself. Celestia then stood up from the rug she laid on and walked over to me as I stood. No need for thanks, good sir. Instead, I wish to thank you for taking care of one of my little ponies. She would have never made it without someone like you. Celestia closed her eyes, then leaned her horn towards me. I didn't move. I wasn't sure what was going on as she touched her horn with my head. I felt a sudden warmth rush through my body. She drew her horn away, still smiling, as she stepped back. Thank you. Then another pony spoke up. Thank you, sir, Twilight added, finally being able to speak through her tears. Thank you, Applejack said.
Thank you, darling, for caring for our Rainbow Dash.
Rarely spoke. Thank you, Fluttershy quietly said. Thanks! Pinkie Pie shouted as she sprung up and hugged me. I couldn't help but laugh a little at her extrinsic attitude. Better yet, the rumors on the internet were true. Her mane did smell like cotton candy. I remained silent as I nodded, then looked back to Rainbow Dash, who also wore a smile on her face. The ponies all returned to Dashy as Twilight's horn began to glow once more. Are you ready now, Rainbow Dash? Twilight asked again, returning to Dashy and starting her magic. She simply nodded as she closed her eyes and I awaited the inevitable. It seemed time slowed down as Twilight's horn approached Dashy's forehead. My mind began forcing random memories of us together. I can vividly remembering the splashing of the bathtub from her first bath times before she showered herself. I can still taste the many failed attempts at baking and cooking. In general, I still smell the outdoors from her times at the park where she was able to spread her wings. There were just so many memories that I simply had to shut off my brain so that I could keep focused on my little Dashy. A single tear ran down her left cheek as I could see her eyes move under her lids. Her mind was doing the exact same thing mine was, forcing our fondest memories of all time, all at once. For this would be the last time we ever saw one another. Finally, Twilight's horn touched Dashy's forehead. There was a bright light, and when I could see again, they were all gone. The ponies had disappeared. Through my tears, I sighed in relief. It felt wrong, but it felt so right at the same time. She was now the normal Rainbow Dash that belonged in Ponyville. I stood there in the living room for several more moments, just staring blankly at the empty floor that Dashy had been standing on just moments before. Then I looked around the room and took notice of my surroundings. I noticed things were different. Pictures that had once held images of me and Dashy no longer hung from the walls. Many of the random personal items of her scattered around the living room were gone as well. I was confused, so I ran up to her bedroom to look. When I opened the door, what I saw instead of her NASCAR and air show posters mixed up with her bed and her other furnishings was a simple office. A cheap desk with a computer on it and an ugly-looking potted plant. It took me some time to just digest what I was experiencing before I realized what must have happened. It all made sense, but it still stung me in my chest. To make sure nothing happened between worlds, Celestia must have removed any existence of Dashy ever being here, being with me. 15 years all down the drain, as if her existence was wiped from the planet. I felt as though all those years were for naught, wasted, as I wouldn't be able to remember her. And yet my memories of her still lingered. I could still remember everything as if it were still as vivid as the day it happened. Then the thought clicked. She did something with her magic when she touched me with her horn. Did she protect my memory so that I would remember her? Had she done the same for Dashy? I walked back downstairs and into the living room as I thought. On the coffee table sat a book. I recognized it. It was my photo album. I sat down on the couch, opened it to the first page. There was my mother and father with me shortly after I was born. I continued to flip through them, looking at my own past. There was a gap after my parents died, but I tried to keep my mother's dream going, and I picked it back up, making false pictures of happy times and enjoying my life to stick into her book of memories. Then I opened up a piece of paper. I picked it up. I immediately recognized the handwriting, or more correctly, the mouth writing. I speculated this was what she had written down before she left. Dad, for 15 years you took care of me. For 15 years you loved me, played with me, and made sure I enjoyed my life in a world not meant to house me. I am not a man of many words, but even though I told you this in person, I felt you needed a written version of it so you'd know it all was real. I love you, Daddy. You helped me shape me into the man I am now. I am not sure what is going to happen, or if I will remember any of this, but I want you to know that you did a darn good job of raising me, even if I was a bit stubborn at times and short with you during others. With Celestia's permission, I hope to allow you to keep our photos, our memories, and with you so you will never forget. Again, I love you, and thank you. Your little daughter always, your little Dashy forever. Rainbow Dash. I set the note back down into the page, flattening it with my hand, as I felt the dried up tear marks littering the paper. I read the note over and over and over again, until I had it memorized. Then I turned the page and was greeted by Dashy's little filly smile. So I now sit here, looking through my photo album of our times together. Her first bath, her first words, her first drawing, even her first preened feather. All in this book of memories. Everything else in the house was gone, but what I had put in this book still remains. I don't dare ever change that either, but I will continue to add to it, to show that all those years will have helped not only her, but helped me shape me as well. I am a new man from what I was 15 years ago, changed, given another chance by a sheer miracle of fortunate events that transpired from somewhere I can't even speculate. If I had never gone back and checked on that box, if I had done something different than I had, I could have changed everything between us. I guess I'm lucky that it all worked out. I can gladly say I have achieved my parents' only wish, for me to be happy. Though I am saddened, I am still happy for the time I have with her. I now sit alone in this empty house, staring at my mother's rainbow picture with a smile plastered on my face. Every time I see it I think of Dashy. I should be crying, I should feel horrible and want nothing more but my daughter back, and yet I feel relieved to know that everything is all right. She didn't run away or leave on bad terms. She's gone home to where she belongs, and she's safe. I took back my photo album, turning to the page after our most recent photo. The pages are all still blank, and I still have a lot of life ahead of me, and I plan to make the most of it. For myself, and for my little Dashy. The end.